Set. 4, 3, 1.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Sunday Morning Quarterback. We are a podcast of three pastors who love ministry, leadership, and sports. We are so happy you're here with us today. This is our first ever podcast. Let me introduce you to the gang coming all the way from Richmond, Virginia, the Fox, Mr. Adam Denny. What's going on, Adam?
Hey, everybody. Glad to be here.
Coming from the Music City, Nashville, Pastor Joe Frajowski. Dad, you doing all right today?
What's going on? Doing fantastic.
And my name is Joseph Frajowski. It is good to be with you, coming live from Ringgold, Georgia. Guys, we are so happy you're here with us today. This is our first ever podcast, and we're just really excited. But let me tell you a little bit of backstory before we jump in about how this whole thing started. So we're friends. We know each other from Tennessee Temple. Shout out TTU. Dad, I see you repping a little TTU today. Anyway, we've each landed in churches, and the three things that we probably think and talk most about are ministry, leadership, and sports. And so what we wanted to do was we wanted to take you guys behind the curtain. And if you were to see our group chat for the past 6 months, every day, it's either something about church, something about leadership, or something about sports. And so we thought, you know what, we need to make a podcast because there's either another pastor or a minister or maybe a lay person in your church, you volunteer, and you probably think, talk, and think about a lot of the same things that we do. So that's kind of why we're here. And we just wanted to kind of create a platform and a space where we could talk about the things that we love. So before we delve into any topics today, I want to introduce you to the gang. So Mr. Adam Denny, I want to ask you two questions. Tell us about your family, your church, I guess it's three, and then your sports biases. It's important that when talking about sports, we know about each other's sports biases.
All right. So been married to my bride for a little over 10 years, and Joe actually performed that wedding. And so it's good. We were reflecting on that a few months ago. We've got three children, ages 6, 5, and 3, and they keep us going crazy. I'm getting grayer and grayer as the days go on. I serve a wonderful church in Richmond, Virginia. This year in the fall, we're going to be celebrating 190 years of God's faithfulness in and through this church. And so we look forward to that, but it's been a tremendous church in so many ways. As far as my sports biases, it is UNC Tar Heels, everything, and that's in my blood if you cut me. Also, as you see behind me, the Liberty Flames, same thing, season ticket holder to their football program and just love everything that university's doing. And being a Carolina guy, Carolina Panthers, and we'll talk a little bit about that in this episode as well. And I know neither of you two care much, but I'm also a big time Atlanta Braves fan, and they are doing great this year. And so reigning champions, of course. And so I'm locked in for the summer with them too.
Nice. Hey, and I forgot to mention, Adam just graduated with his doctorate. So Dr. Adam Denny, and Dad, he's already taking more classes. Like, who does that?
Oh, making us look bad already.
Man. All right, Dad, tell us a little bit about your church family and what are your sports biases?
I was born and raised outside of Washington, D.C., Stafford County. I married my high school sweetheart. I met her at 15. I got married at 19. She was 20. And we just celebrated 32 years of marriage in January. I have one son, still working on him. He's all right. Well, we'll keep him. But more importantly, I have 2 granddaughters.
Yeah, that's all he cares about now.
Yeah, that's it. Joseph, you're all right. But
he doesn't come down to see me. He just wants to see the girls.
Hey, I've never said that. That may be true, but I've never said that. But I live in Nashville, Tennessee. I serve as pastor at Charlotte Road Baptist Church. And it is a privilege to serve there. They are a beautiful people. They love the Lord. They believe the scriptures to be true and holy. And so we are just a body of believers trying to carry out the Great Commission for the Lord. My bias is one, the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, baby. There we go.
Which I believe is the franchise of all franchises. It's the star. And we know about the wise men, right, Joseph? The
Yep.
wise men followed the what?
The star, baby.
The
It's
star.
biblical, Adam. It's
So,
biblical.
yeah.
Hey, I think
So-
we need to do an episode in August, which is nationally known as Cowboy Delusion Month.
Oh gosh.
Hey, let me repeat what I've stated for the last 25 years. This is the year.
This
Yeah,
is
I
the
know
year,
you-
baby.
Cowboys are going to the Super
Under the
Bowl.
radar. Hey, I think after about a year of this podcast, I think we can have Adam converted after Baker Mayfield
I
flounders a
think
little bit.
so.
He'll be looking
I
for a
think
team.
so. I think so. I really feel he's coming over to our side. The blue and the gray. Come
Yeah.
on.
He's already
over.
got the blue.
There's-
He just
There's
got to work
room
some
for
silver
you.
in
That's
there.
right.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
room for you.
Come on, baby.
Yeah.
That's cool. Well, all right. Well, cool. My name is Joseph Rajowski. I'm one of the associate pastors at Burning Bush Baptist Church in Ringgold, Georgia, right outside of Chattanooga. Been here for going on 8 years. Hard to believe. 8 years. Have 2 beautiful daughters. One of them is about to turn 4, and she's told me everything she wants for her birthday today. And married to my lovely wife, Brianna, who is a 5th grade science teacher. She just got a new job, so she's going to be doing that. And then I'm in the home stretch like Adam. I'm currently trying to wrap my doctorate up, and if it doesn't kill me by Christmas, that'll be a miracle. And so anyway, now just excited to jump in. And I just got to say too, the only team to ever really truly snag our hearts is the Dallas Cowboys. Everything ends and begins there, and so we schedule our life other than Sunday church around Cowboys. I won't schedule a ministry event if it conflicts with Cowboy time. I'm just gonna be honest.
Hey, I got to break in too, Joseph, and you can validate this. Me and Joseph, we are huge Cowboy fans, but we fail in comparison now to Pam, my wife, and his mother. She actually is a bigger Cowboy fan than we are. I
She's
don't know when
borderline
that happened,
stalker.
but it's true.
She's
I don't
borderline
know when
stalker.
that happened. It's true. Probably when she started buying all the clothing and all that, really just sealed the deal.
Borderline
So
stalker.
Yep. I'm
And
proud of
Dad-
that.
Dad-
I'm proud of that.
Don't let your church get it twisted now. You live in Nashville. Just so the Titans had a little bit of success.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, I root for them. But the Titans don't cover the star. It starts with a star.
Got to
Yeah.
keep your priorities right. Well, all right, fellas, let's jump into it. So what we'll do is we will start off with our sports topic. And we'll do a few hot takes and picks, and then we will transition into our ministry and leadership topic. So, Adam, I'm going to pass it to you first as you are the lifelong Carolina Panther fan. How do you think your new quarterback, Baker Mayfield, will do with the Panthers?
It's a wait and see thing. It's kind of hard for him to walk in. I think basically what's happening is him and Rule are trying to save each other's careers. But I hope this doesn't turn into just the next bad decision of our owner, who since taking over the franchise has been terrible. I think the silver lining for Panthers fans is that we will get national media coverage, which is about
Yes, you
80%
will.
dominated by the Cowgirls.
Yep.
And so I'm looking into,
Baker's
taking
number
a little
2
bit of
behind
that
bad
with Baker.
press.
Yeah. So it's a wait and see thing, but obviously I'm rooting for him, so we'll see.
That's funny. Dad, what do you think? How do you think Baker's going to do?
I actually think he's going to do okay. I really believe that Baker can galvanize a team with low talent. Sorry, Adam. And but I think he falls by the wayside once the team ups their talent level and they actually surpass his ability to lead them. So I think that he'll do pretty good initially. I do think he plays with a chip on his shoulder. But if they try to build around him, that's usually where he has problems. So I think initially he'll do well. Excited for that first game, the Browns and the Panthers. But long term, I don't think he's the solution.
Yeah, and I think we've been saying this for 4 or 5 years now. If McCaffrey's healthy,
Yep.
that's the difference.
Yep.
Yep.
And even when Darnold was playing, we were playing great, and then CMC got hurt, and then it just went downhill from there. So.
Yep, I agree. You got to ride McCaffrey, kind of like in Dak's early days. Zeke was the bell cow, and I think if y'all could ride McCaffrey and let Baker do his thing, he is accurate. But when you put that pressure on him and make him throw 35 times, it just he throws picks.
I got to tell you too, when he was healthy and things were rolling, I think he's a fairly decent quarterback. I'm hoping that he's learned a little bit continue to mature, get humble a little bit. And I think he can. I think he can develop into a nice quarterback.
Yep.
The team has to be strong around him,
Yep.
but I think he can develop into a nice quarterback.
He's got a little swag too. All right, let's keep it moving. Adam, what are your thoughts? We got a lot of college football fans in our churches and that are our friends. So let's talk college football for a second. Adam, what are your thoughts on the new Power Conference realigning? How do you think it will impact college football?
Well, they've been talking about this for several years now. And then when Texas and OU, went to the SEC last summer, and then with USC and UCLA going to the Big Ten this summer, it seems like all of those warnings or prophecies, they're being fulfilled about there being two major conferences. I'm not a fan of it because I grew up in ACC country, and there's so many not great programs, but good programs with large followings that are, just trying to figure out what in the world are we going to do now. Even though, the Big Ten and the SEC, I won't say they're top heavy, but they've got a lot of schools that, wouldn't do well in the ACC or the Pac-12 either. So, it's all about money.
Yep.
And I think things are just going to keep changing for several years, and we'll see what happens. But it is what it is, as the old saying goes.
Yeah, it'll have big implications on basketball. I mean, we start talking about Carolina and Duke not being in the same conference. Yeah, that'll get real tricky. Dad, what are your thoughts? Power alignment, you like it?
I don't really like it. I think for some of the smaller teams that can go undefeated, that wouldn't get a sniff into the national championship arena, I think the big boys will beat themselves up in their conference play. And so I don't see, like I always see it as the four corners. Each team emerges from each corner they play each other. And so now there's no more four corners. And so they're going to play each other, and there's going to be a lot of great teams that have losses. That's just the way it's going to be. So I think ultimately it's not going to be good for the sport. But I think the smaller teams, they're going to like it. But I tell you this, if they can enlarge the playoffs, I think it can work well. If they don't enlarge the playoffs, you're going to have a lot of great teams that will not make the playoffs. Lesser teams will make it because they'll go undefeated. But if they enlarge the playoffs, it can be something nice.
Yeah, and I've heard rumors of if they don't enlarge the playoffs significantly, like at least 8, 12, maybe even 16, all of these teams on the outside looking in, they're just going to create a whole new league. And it'll kind of go back to, how the NFL used to be, the NBA used to be like that. And they'll just say, all right, you guys want to do your own thing and make it all about money and nothing to do with student athletes, then we'll just go create our own, and then we can fight about who the real, champion is every year. So
Yep. It'll be interesting too. You'll have a lot of 2-3 lost good teams, but the Tennessees of the world and those mid-level like SEC teams, I'm kind of looking forward to seeing them versus Texas and different things like that, and it'll definitely change the landscape for sure. All right, let's keep it moving. So we are going to move to our next segment, which we are calling Preacher Picks. Now, we're kind of in an off season right now, but as football and basketball pick back up, each week we're going to make different bold preacher predictions. Maybe it's specific games, or who's going to win a conference or a championship or Super Bowl contender, or who's going to win an MVP. But with free agency, let's start in the NBA. Big news with Kevin Durant. Adam, what team do you think Kevin Durant will start the season with?
All right, I'm going to say this not as I'm not a Kevin Durant guy. I don't think many people are. But here's if I were him, if I were his agent, if I were anyone that is close to him, that cares about him, he needs to go back to Oklahoma City. And the way that they can make this work is they have a ton of future first-round picks, and they've got a lot of young talent. Obviously, I don't think you ship off the best of those, but if they can package a deal, and I think if he stayed in OKC and finished his career there, even if he came close to winning a championship there, I think he'd gain a lot of respect, for his legacy and whatnot. So there's very few teams that have the ability to get him in a trade, but I think that's what he needs to do, and it could happen.
Yep. Dad, what do you think? Where do you think Katie will land?
I think he's going to stay right where he's at. I think he's going to stay right where he's at. I think this is a lot of smoke and mirrors. I think Brooklyn has no intentions of trading him, but of course they want him to know that they're looking. And now I actually think that they don't have any intentions. But if somebody bites on some major trade pieces, they'll pull the trigger. But I think they are happy with what they have, and they will try to galvanize everybody once they all understand, hey, this is who we are as a team, and then they'll make a run.
I think it's a hit job on Sean Marks because the report said Katie went directly to Joe Tsai. And so I think this all has to do with Kyrie's contract. So I actually think they haven't fallen out. But I think it'd be hilarious if Brooklyn's like, okay, and they traded him somewhere like Cleveland or some team like that. This is just a garbage team.
Yeah, that's the thing is he's under contract for I think 4 more years, so he doesn't have a say so unless he would go somewhere where he would be traded and just sit out. I don't know. It's funny.
Yep. Well, we'll keep our preacher picks coming as college and the NFL kick off and as football season comes along. We're really excited about that. All right, guys, that's going to wrap up our sports segment. Now we're going to transition to ministry and leadership. And what we're going to do is we're just going to talk about 2 different questions today. The first one is going to be a little bit more geared toward ministry in the church. And then the second one is going to be geared toward theology and a little bit more practicality of discipleship. So, Adam, I want to come to you with our first ministry question. Here's what it is. What is the greatest challenge facing the church today?
That's a loaded question. You know, you could go in so many different directions, but if I want to point out like a specific kind of broad idea, I would say it's worldliness. And that's probably what has always been the greatest threat to the church. When you just think about, we understand the promise that Jesus said that, you know, the gates of hell will never overthrow his church and that it's him that builds the church. But even as the church is existing, when you think about, you know, New Testament letters like First Corinthians or in Revelation, when Jesus is addressing the different churches and just the constant warnings throughout all of the epistles, it was always warnings against worldliness and allowing, you know, secular ideas that were contrary to scripture and what is true to infiltrate in the church. And I think, you know, we're living in a very similar time in which the New Testament letters were written in that way in America, because we are so hyper influenced by the world to the point that we're desensitized to it. We don't know it because when you consider, you know, who is the primary discipler of your people in your church, it's probably social media or just, you know, big media in general. All of the entertainment. So I was thinking about, you know, those old fundamentalist preachers that used to warn against, you know, going into the picture show.
Yep.
And we think of how silly that sounded. And of course, that was, you know, very legalistic just to say, don't go to the movies at all. But I think there was some wisdom in those warnings because I don't think they would have anticipated where we are today. But they knew that the human mind and heart and spirit follows what we see and hear. And I think it's just permeated so many parts of churches that we're just unaware of it. And so we've got people that are kind of living as Christians, but also trying to figure out, how do I live, you know, as a Christian when I'm just consumed with the world all the time to the point that we don't even realize how consumed we are.
That's good. Dad, what are your thoughts?
I'm with Adam. There's no just one answer. They're all the greatest. But I think one toward the top is the lack of belief of God's power. Because I really believe that I think, and I want to focus this more on the leadership of the church. I don't believe that we believe that God can still save people. I don't think we believe that God still moves in a massive way. I don't think we truly believe in the power of prayer. We say it, we share it, we quote it, but do we really believe in the power of prayer? Do we really believe that God can make a difference in this world? And I think it really starts with that understanding, even with the pastor, because the pastor sets the culture of the church. And so if the pastor says it without true belief, because your belief will dictate your actions and what you do and the things that you go after. And so if you don't believe in the power of God to do great things within your church, and I'm not just talking about a building project, I'm talking about absolutely radically changing a man's life that absolutely changes his marriage and his family, and building a church through that. And so I think we got to get back to understanding where Paul was talking about in Ephesians chapter 1, the power that we have that raised Jesus from the dead. We have that power.
Mm-hmm.
And, we carry a tremendous treasure within us that 2 Corinthians talks about in chapter 4, a treasure that has great value and is ready to be exposed in our lives. But, it doesn't matter how much money you have in the bank if you don't go and take some of it out. There's no value if it just stays there. And so I think one of the greatest challenges that we have is to believing the things that we study and read about in the New Testament, in the book of Acts, and even some of our heroes of the faith. I don't know if we really believe that can happen to us and to our church and to our country and our world.
And to me, that's almost the other side of the coin of what I've just said. Because then you have to ask the question, Joe, why don't we believe? And I think a lot of that is secularism and kind of the post-enlightenment modernity that we're living in which, unless you can put it in a science lab or make some mathematical equation, we don't really believe it. And then you consider the fact that our minds are so pulled away from those spiritual realities that our hearts should be drawn towards. You've got a recipe for what you're saying.
Yep,
Dad, can you hit a little bit on because the one thing I was thinking of is obviously lack of biblical conviction. But if you're not in the Bible and consuming the Word and in prayer and walking with the Spirit, then your prayers will be shallow. Dad, we talked a little bit on the phone the other day about church becoming a hobby. Can you go into that a little bit?
Yeah, I think that's a very much of a danger within the church, and even boiling down to the families. That's one of the things I'm seeing with the families right now, where church is not on the list of priorities.
Yep.
Well, church is not on the list of any priority. Jesus is the priority. Everything falls from that. And if we're not careful, then it will become a part of this list. And if everything is cleared and your schedule looks good, then you can go to church. And so I think what we're doing is, our commitment level, what it has been, 20, 30, 40 years is different now. And we're saying, well, it's a different culture, so it's okay. Well, Jesus held the line for righteousness. He gave grace and mercy, but he held the line for his standard. And I think it's important for churches to hold the line and say, hey, look, church is not a hobby. It's not something that you go to. It's not on any list. Because if it becomes a list and church is just a hobby, then the family suffers.
Yeah.
So if church is a hobby in your family, then your children will follow suit. And if they don't have a ball game, if they don't want to have to go camping and everything's cleared, then they can go to church. Well, guess what type of Christian they're going to be? That's a recipe for a carnal Christian. And so if church is a hobby, it goes back to what Adam's talking about. Well, I don't have to strive for holiness. I don't have to say no, because the Bible says, deny yourself. If you want to be my disciple, you must deny yourself, take up your cross and follow me. There's nothing about a hobby. And so there's some things that the world's going to want you to take part in, and you're going to be attracted to that. But we have to deny ourselves and say yes to God and no to the world.
And let's segue into our next question, because I think they kind of tie together. And I'm actually going to jump on this one first. Our next question is this: how can we best practice and live out discipleship in our home and with our family? And this is something that we talk about a lot just in ministry circles with pastors, and it's a common struggle for all of us in our churches. And I think the easy answer is it has to start in the home. I was taught very early, family structure starts with the man, the father. And so dad sets the tone for the home, whether we're going to go to church or the type of television we're going to expose ourselves to, or the priorities that we set. And just not just talking about my church or your church, but as a whole, we have so many things competing, and they're not bad things. They're not sinful things. I mean, whether it be school or sports or all these different things, or social media and all these things that competing for likes and follows and your identity, and people are trying to place their identity in all these different things, and so many times faith gets put on the back burner. So the question is, how can we best practice and live out discipleship in our home and for our families? And I think it has to start with mom and dad. My brother-in-law always told me, he said, you can't give me a delinquent for an hour a week and expect a disciple. Okay, it's got to start daily. It's got to start modeling it. It's got to start at the dinner table. It's got to start at nighttime before bed, and it's got to start early, because I think a lot of times parents they jump on when it's maybe a little bit too late.
So let's talk practically about discipleship. Adam, I'm going to pass it to you. As a husband, as a father, as a pastor, how can we live this out practically?
Yeah, you kind of touched on it, and so did Joe, in saying, the dad sets the tone, and whatever the father's doing, the children are watching. It's not to say that the mom isn't a leader. She probably is going to, at the end of the day, have more influence.
Mm-hmm.
But if the dad is not fulfilling his role as a follower of Christ, he's not leading. So it'd be like, it would be like Baker Mayfield showing up to Panthers training camp and being the last guy there and the first
Sure.
to leave. And so, the leader must set the tone. But I would also say that, and one of you said it, you've got to prioritize Jesus and the church.
Mm-hmm.
The church is not going away anytime soon. And the church, in a sense, is supposed to be the center of the Christian family's life, not something you do every now and then, not something you do occasionally when there's nothing else to do. There's a sense in which everything should flow through the life of the church. That's why, for hundreds of years, people have been married at church, and we bury them after meeting in a church, because we realize in saying that everything is happening here. So in order to disciple a family, the family has to latch hold to that truth first and foremost, because the family is, in a sense, a little church that, of course, belongs to that larger local church and, of course, the universal church.
Dad, I know you guys did Round Table Revival recently at Charlotte Road, and y'all talked specifically about this topic. What were some takeaways, like practically for the mom or dad or out there, or the pastor leading the student ministry, or how can we practically do this?
Well, I think ultimately everything starts in the home. Like Adam said, it starts with dad and mom, with a conviction of understanding who they are. And also, I think it's important for the family to know church is not a place. It's a people. And so you are the church. And so church is at home. And so I really think it really starts with that conviction. Who are you? Are you a disciple? Are you a follower of God? Do you follow in this? Because ultimately he said, follow me. That's what he said. And so we're called to follow him. And so the dad sets the atmosphere in the home. And so we have to decide, who they're going to follow. What type of atmosphere are they going to share within the home? What type of convictions that they're going to have as husband and wife? Because the children will follow. And so I don't think it's the children's, issues at all. They will do whatever mom and dad instructed them to do. So they're the ones that have to make that commitment to say, hey, we're going to get up and we're going to put our children in an atmosphere for them to grow. We're going to put them in Sunday school class, bring them to small groups and Wednesdays and any type of outings to put them into an atmosphere to grow. And that's where the church comes in. So the church comes in to help build this foundation, to come alongside of the parents. So there's a beautiful dance that God created. We're supposed to work with each other, moms and dads, the homes and the church. But if there's no commitment from mom and dad, if there's no conviction, and they don't understand, they just think that church, is a place, not a people, uh, then church is just inside of a building. And then when you leave it, then, you do your own thing.
Yeah, I think I shared with you two guys when we launched our brotherhood Sunday school class here at our church. You know, a large impetus for that was for me to invest mostly in younger men who have children ranging from small to, teenage years. And you may remember I told you, I think that when I had an initial leadership meeting to launch this and get it up and running and really cast a vision for the church, had about 10 or 12 guys, most of them, very committed to the church. And I went around the room. I asked a question. I said, how many of you were raised in a home where your father was the spiritual leader and he set that spiritual tone for your family? And you could say without hesitation, was a faithful follower of Jesus. And in a room of about 10 or 12, only one hand went up.
Mm.
And I said, that's how I know I'm doing here exactly what we need to be doing so that we can kind of break that chain and that habit in our family's history. And, the Lord's been blessing that. But I think that's probably symptomatic of most churches in America for whatever reason.
Yeah. And I think another interesting part is we look at 20, 30 years ago in the church, it was all built on got to go to Sunday school, got to read your Bible, got to do this, got to do that. And so there was the practices, but there wasn't the spiritual power coming through. So then it's like we've gone away. Well, those things are good, but you don't have to, we've kind of gone too far to the pendulum. So I'm a believer in holy habits and spiritual disciplines. And we're disciplined to go to the gym and to do our homework and do all these other things. And then I think we've gone too far away from it. So, I mean, it's basic things. Scripture memory is so key. Having a Bible plan, walking through it, talking about the word at the dinner table. I think with millennials and Gen Z monitoring their worldly content, how much they're absorbing, Disney Plus, Netflix, and I'm going through that with the 4-year-old. Okay, no, we're turning the TV off and we're just going to dialogue. We're going to talk about faith, and on the way to work, we're going to talk about, why did God give us the trees, and just being really intentional. And so I'm a big believer in spiritual disciplines and holy habits. You see that all throughout the Old Testament. You look at different people, Daniel, for instance, and the Pentateuch. They didn't even have the New Testament, but they were built on their disciplines and their habits. So that's a good talk.
One last thing, I think it's important too that the church really teach the importance of facts, and not just facts, but faith. And so if we're not careful, it'll all just be about we're learning and growing and we're increasing our database for information. But we all know it's more about the transformation.
Yep.
So it's more about growing in our faith. And a lot of that is when we understand that there should be an intimacy in our relationship. That's what separates everything. The Holy Spirit brings that connection, that transformation. In the Old Testament, it was all about rules and rituals and facts. And even like, when you quote a verse, you learn a verse, and then you can say that verse verbatim, word for word, but then you ask, what does that mean? And then you go a little bit deeper. What does that mean to me? And so there's so much more involved in just religion. It is a relationship, and there's intimacy. And the closer we get to God, the closer we'll get to God.
And it starts with conviction. Well, that's a good ministry topic. And to wrap up, we're gonna every podcast we're gonna end with this week we're gonna end with a word on leadership, and then the next episode we're gonna end with a word on theology. So just real quick, as we wrap up our talk, Dad, what's our word on leadership for the day? Maybe for the pastor out there, or for the church member who serves and volunteers and a leader in the community. What's our word on leadership for today?
Well, today I'm going to keep it simple. Because we will build upon this, but I think it's important for the beginning. It's being a servant and servanthood, servant leadership. As a matter of fact, Pam, my wife, is working on her master's in leadership, and she's reading a book. It's in a secular environment, and they're talking about this new phase of leadership, and it's servant leadership. And so she's reading this book to me, and it's this new trendy way to lead. And she just started laughing. She's like, well, maybe they obviously haven't read the Bible, because that's what leadership's all about. That's how Jesus demonstrated leadership, is serving. And so I think it starts with the heartbeat of understanding that we are a servant. Most of the New Testament, and particularly the epistles, always start with, I am a slave, I am a bondservant, I am a servant of God. They all started that way. And then they gave their posture, then they gave their position. I am a servant and apostle, a servant and apostle. And so they always started with that understanding who they are without Christ. We have value because of the treasure we carry. And that's Jesus. And so it starts with understanding that we serve Christ. And as leaders, we serve the church. We're called to give our lives away. You cannot give your life away if you hold your life as something of value. And we know that Paul said, hey, my life is rubbish. What matters most is Christ, and he be lifted up. And so I think it starts there. That is one of the foundational points in leadership, is to remember who you are. We are servant of the Most High God.
So we appreciate that. Well, guys, that about wraps it up. We hope you've enjoyed this so far. We're going to look to do about every other week. And so as the sports season gets coming and as the church continues to grow, we're going to be here. So find us on social media. Find us in your podcast, wherever you get that. We'll have the link thing where you can Spotify, iTunes, find us wherever you want. And guys, it's been fun. I'm super happy we got this first one under our belt. Y'all have a great day, and we will see you in 2 weeks.
Go Cowboys!
Yeah.